Now we're going to talk about the coordinate plane. Well, so far when it comes to graphing equations, you have learned how to use the number line. And the number line is where we would graph a closed circle for an equation or an open or closed circle with arrow or arrows for inequalities. And all this occurred in one dimension. And basically this is our x-axis. Well, now what we're going to do is go into two dimensions. So we're going to go from having just length to working with height as well. And now we're going to be working with equations that have two variables in them. So before we had basic equations with one variable like 2x plus 4 equaled negative 6. Well, now we're going to be working with equations that have two variables like 2x plus 4y equals negative 6. Now that we have two variables in our equations, our answer will actually have an x value and a y value. So our x and y answers will come together to form what's called an ordered pair. We might call it a point, but it's really called an ordered pair or coordinate. So that's why this is called the coordinate plane. It is a plane, two-dimensional plane, that has a lot of, or an infinite number of ordered pairs or coordinates on it. So our axis that is horizontal is called the x-axis, and our axis that is vertical is called the y-axis. And they're just number lines. And so our number line is negative when we're going to the left for the x-axis and negative when we're going down for the y-axis. Anytime we have an answer or a solution for an equation, it will show up as an ordered pair or coordinate on our plane. So let's say we have an equation and one of the answers is x equals 2 when y equals 1. X equals 2 when y equals 1. So that's what the answer would look like to the equation. Now our equations will have an infinite number of answers like inequalities did. So our ordered pair will have an x value and a y value. The x value will tell you how far sideways you move on your x-axis. It will be positive if you move in the positive direction. It will be negative if you move in the negative direction. Our y value tells you the value on the y-axis. It'll be positive if you move up, it'll be negative if you move down. So, and our ordered pair is always in alphabetical order. X comes before y, so it's in alphabetical order x, y. So for example, in this ordered pair 2, 1, what I've done is I know that 2 is my x value and 1 is my y value because they're in alphabetical order. So that means that I have moved over 2 in the positive direction starting at 0. Here's 0, 1, 2 in the positive direction on my x-axis, and I've moved up 1 in the positive direction on my y-axis. And so where those two come together is my point, ordered pair, or coordinate, however you want to think about it, 2, 1. So when we're looking at a coordinate plane, our coordinate plane is broken up into 4 parts. They're called quadrants. That's quadrant 1. This is quadrant 2. This is quadrant 3. And this is quadrant 4. So it's broken up into 4 parts based on how the axes intersect. So, and when you're looking at the quadrants and trying to figure out how to label them, they're going to go in what's called counterclockwise order. So if you think of a clock, when you read a clock, here's 12, 3, 9, 6, and 9. And when we read the clock normally, we go around in this order. That's called clockwise. So we're actually going to read this counterclockwise, which means we're going to start at 12 and go backwards. 12, 9, 6, 3, back to 12. So we are counting these counterclockwise. And we start where everything is positive. So you'll notice in quadrant 1, any ordered pair in quadrant 1 or coordinate is going to have a positive x and a positive y value. And let's look at an example. If I have the ordered pair right here, let's say, if That's my ordered pair. That means I'm going to move over 5 in the positive direction for x, and I'm going to move up 2 in the positive direction for y. So notice, no matter what x I pick, it will be positive in this quadrant. No matter what y I pick, it will be positive in this quadrant. So that's where you start. That's quadrant 1, where everything's positive. So in the second quadrant, our x values are negative. You can see that right here. All of our x values will be negative and all of our y values will be positive. And we have an example. You'll see the point B, and the ordered pair for point B is -1, 1. That's in quadrant 2. My x value is negative and my y value is positive. Now if we go down to quadrant 3, we notice the ordered pair E. The ordered pair E, I moved over 1, 2, 3 in the negative direction for x, and I moved down 1, 2 in the negative direction for y. So that's the ordered pair -3, -2 in quadrant 3. In quadrant 4, I have point D, which has the ordered pair 1, because I moved over 1 in the positive direction, -3, because I moved down from 0 to 1, 2, 3 in the negative direction. So 1 is my x value and -3 is my y value at point D. We have a very important point and ordered pair on this picture, and that's point O, which gives us ordered pair 0, 0. This is referred to at the origin. It's where both x and y are 0, and it's where you always start counting from. Just like on any number line or ruler or anything you start counting with, you always start at 0. So if I'm getting ready to count, I always start here and then move over 1, 2, however many places I need to move and count. Sometimes you will find ordered pairs that are not in a quadrant. For example, the origin is not in a particular quadrant. So if you're asked what quadrant it's in, you can't give quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4. You just say it's the origin. Notice that we have point A. Point A is on what? It's on the y-axis, right? And it's on the y-axis because the x value is 0. And whenever the x value is 0, it means we haven't moved from side to side at all. And we're just going to go up 2 in the positive direction on our y-axis. So that's 0, 2. The next ordered pair is for the point B. Here's point B right here. And so we'll notice that B is where? It's on the x-axis, right? So it's not in any of the quadrants either. So if you're asked what quadrant it's in, you would just say x-axis, since it's not in a quadrant. And we'll notice that we went over 3 in the negative direction, starting at the origin, 1, 2, 3. And then we didn't go up or down at all. Therefore, our y value is going to be 0. So anytime you have a point that's on the x-axis, your y value is 0, and whenever you have a point that's on the y-axis, your x is 0. I'm going to do a couple of these with you and then have you finish listing the ordered pairs and the quadrants for each of these points. Let's start with point A. What do you think the ordered pair is for point A? What's your x value? We moved over 1 in the positive direction going sideways, so that's our x value. What about your y value? Did we go up or down at all? No, so our y value is 0. And what quadrant is that in? It's not in a quadrant, is it? Where is it? It's on the x-axis. So that's what we put for quadrant. And now let's skip over to point E. So let's look at point E. How far over did we go for the x value? We went over -1, right? So that's our x value. And then how far up did we go for our y value? We went up 1, so that's +1 for our y value. And what quadrant is this point in? It's in the second quadrant, right? Because we start, where's our first quadrant? It's where everything's positive. And then do we go forwards or do we go backwards to count these? we go backwards, right? So quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Let's do J together. So point J is right here. What is our x value? How far over did we move? We moved over 4 for x in the positive direction. And then how about for y? We moved down -2, right? Or we moved down 2, which is -2. And what quadrant are we in? We're in the 4th quadrant. And they always use Roman numerals to show what quadrant they're in. Go ahead and finish this chart and then check back. Go ahead and check your answers. In this next section, we're going to graph the ordered pairs and label each point with the letter that corresponds with it. So with the first one, I'll do a couple of these with you and then have you finish them. A is -3, 2. So move over 3 in the negative direction on the x-axis and then up 2 in the positive direction for y. So here's our point A. Then for B, we'd go over 5 on the x-axis in the positive direction, down 2 in the negative direction, and then where those intersect right here, this is point B. So notice I'm just showing you a couple of different ways you can do it. All right, so go ahead and finish graphing the rest of these and then check back. Here are the answers. A couple of things I want you to notice. First, your origin does not have to have O to label the point. The origin is always the ordered pair 0, 0, 0. And also notice that your x and y axis should have a label, and we always put the x label on the positive end of our x-axis and the y label on the positive end of the y-axis. And notice that you also always have arrows on the ends of your number line. Why is that? It's to show that they're infinite, right? That you have that these number lines will go on forever.